what the Rams were and what the Bucks were, it was a Ponzi scheme. You bring something in, everyone invest, and it was never long term. You could look at it and go, well, Dan, the Bucks and the Rams got their Super Bowl. But then look at the Eagles, how they did it. Man, the Eagles, what was it, 3 years ago? 3 years ago, the Eagles were a 4-win team. They were a 4-win team. And doesn't that seem that 4-win team like it was 100 years ago? That thing seems like it was 100 years ago. Right? I think both the Bucks and the Rams are in serious trouble. Why are you paying Aaron Donald $20 million to win 6 games? This is why what the Eagles are doing and how they're building their team, that 4-win team that they had 3 years ago seems like light years away. And you look at the Bucks and the Rams, they pushed all their chips in. Now, like I said, they're in purgatory. The Rams, Jared Goff is turning around Detroit. Last year, I'm going to ask Merrill Reese this question here in a second. Last year, I would tell you this. Outside of the Super Bowl with Kansas City, I would tell you that the Detroit Lions were probably the toughest opponent that the Eagles played last year. It took a 4-quarter effort to beat that team, and that was game 1. They had all the tools. They just don't have any experience. They go into this year feeling pretty good about themselves. And Jared Goff, who would have thought the Rams, and between the Rams and the Lions are in a better place. They're in a better place right now than where Los Angeles. Now, good. Hey, they pushed their chips in and won the Super Bowl. I get it. But you got 5 years of hell of football coming up. Let's bring my friend in, Merrill Reese. Merrill, would you agree that last year the Lions, maybe for you, 1 or 2, probably the toughest opponent that the Eagles played outside of the Kansas City last year?
Yeah, I would agree with you because there were extenuating circumstances. Actually, San Francisco in the playoffs ran out of quarterbacks. The Giants at that point didn't play very well. And they had one game that they lost. The only game they lost with Goff, with Jalen Hurts, was the Washington game, and that was a strange game with some awful calls. But I would say basically, and don't forget they lost at Dallas. But again, that wasn't Jalen Hurts. That was Gardner Minshew, and the same when they played the Saints and lost. That was Gardner Minshew. So I would say the physically toughest game was that opener against the Lions.
Merrill, I said this the other day, and tell me if you agree or disagree here. I heard a comment from OTAs and out of the NovaCare Center that said, we expect Jalen Hurts to make this next step. And I told everybody here, I go, if you're expecting him, that next step to be 5,000 passing yards or 40 touchdowns, he's who he is. My expectation for him is to be the better version of who Hurts is. He's such a unique player. He moves the sticks differently. He thinks the game more. I think where they want to see him continue to improve is his decision-making in game. Josh Allen has all the talent in the world, Merrill, but at the end of the day, he's reckless with the ball. Jalen's not. He's such a great decision maker. Isn't it about being for Jalen to improve the better version of how he wins games? Dual threat.
Yeah, that's Jalen Hurts. Perhaps cut down on the running a little bit. I don't think they want him to expose himself to injury quite as much as he did. But he's getting in that. He went in that direction last year, and he is an excellent decision maker. I mean, I remember Dick Vermeil telling me many years ago, the single most important thing a quarterback does is make decisions.
Absolutely. And the fact that he protects the football more so than any quarterback in the league, especially when we're talking about the elite guys, I think it has a lot of Brady quality to it. Who do you think, Merrill, that the Eagles are relying on more this coming year, Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter?
That's a good question because I don't think we saw the full extent of what Jordan Davis could be last year. He suffered a high ankle sprain that kept him down for a while. I think he suffered a concussion that kept him out for a while. But I think he's going to play a very, very big role this year. As far as Carter is concerned, he comes in as the guy that everybody believed could make the biggest impact in the whole draft. I mean, he's a talent. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think both of them. And I think you're going to see the Kobe Dean make a big impact this year. And I also think you're going to see a lot from Nolan Smith.
Merrill, doesn't it seem to you that these Georgia guys are bringing an energy to the building and a youthful energy to the building where, you have a great combination between experience, winning, being a professional, and now you're implementing that youthful environment with these young Georgia guys. It just seems to me that vibe. I've never seen a team, Merrill. Usually after a Super Bowl loss, you see this in momentum and you see this in attitude. Look at the Atlanta Falcons, Merrill. They're still recovering from when Brady stole their heart, when they ripped them apart in the second half. I mean, that organization has never recovered. And it just seems to me that this Eagle team, even in the loss, they're just in a better place right now because they've got great youth. And to me, they're just a great environment in that building right now.
Well, I think you judge that accurately. I think there is a great environment, and you can see it. You can feel it every day in that building. This is a team that has what they call a great culture. And Nick Sirianni's responsible for a lot of that. And also the assistant coaches. I mean, you and I have talked about the importance of the offensive line. And I've always said, give me a great offensive line and an average quarterback over a great quarterback and a depleted offensive line. Now, fortunately, the Eagles don't have an average quarterback. They have a superb young quarterback, but they also have a great offensive line. And in my opinion, the best offensive line coach in the National Football League, and Jeff Stoutland.
Merrill, what is and how will the Eagles define a role for DeAndre Swift? I mean, everyone always seems that they think it's so easy just to do this. Well, here, let's just plug him in, and he's just going to go out there. And there's so many talented players that are in the offense already. Just putting a guy into an offense, that's not that easy just to start getting everybody their touches. What do you think DeAndre Swift's role is going to be in this upcoming season for the Eagles?
I think he'll be one of their backs. I don't think you're going to see I don't think you're going to see a lead back. I think you're going to rotate them a lot because don't forget, Kenneth Gainwell was pretty darn good last year. And Rashad Penny, if he's healthy, can run. And Boston Scott is a tough little back. We call him the giant killer, but he's tough. I don't think there's going to be what they call a bell cow back this year.
You think they're going to be able to replace the 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns that Miles Sanders had with that group?
It's a very good question. The talent is there. Miles, I don't minimize what Miles did. Miles had a terrific year. But but even when Miles was there, they did a lot of rotation. Miles did not stand. Miles was not playing every play. He didn't have 30 carries a game. And I don't think that's their design. I think it's going to be split up. They'll keep the hot back in there. I think it'll be a competitive situation from the first day of training camp until the end of the season.
What do you think will be tougher to replace, Miles Sanders or the right guard?
That's a good question. There are a couple of very interesting people that can move into that right guard spot. One is Cam Jurgens, who actually was drafted out of Nebraska as the heir apparent to Jason Kelce as a center. But he's pretty tough. And then there's Tyler
Steen.
Yeah, Tyler Steen from Vanderbilt and then played last year at Alabama. He's awfully good. But again, it's very tough for me to sit here without seeing one hit. And you see the stuff a little bit at the OTAs, but you will know when the training camp comes and when They really go at it. You see how he adapts. I mean, they don't use the starters very much in the preseason games, but they will with young players like that. They're going to use Jurgens. They're going to use Steen and see what you have there.
I think the kid Steen's going to win the job. I think that watching him at Alabama, he's not the most physical guy on the planet. However, he's physically imposing. He's 6'5". He moves his feet. He's got great hands. And you hear Lane and Jason saying one of the most important things you could possibly say to an old lineman early in his career. And you're right, Merrill. You can't really take a lot out of helmets and shorts in OTAs. But what you can take, most of these coaches and position coaches, they overload the young players with knowledge, and they want to see how much that you can absorb and how much that you keep. And they're saying this about Steen. You don't have to repeat anything to him. He really understands what we're being asked to him and what's being asked to him. And I hear Lane Johnson and two Hall of Famers, Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey, making comments like that. I think that's a really great endorsement. And they're not diminishing Cam, but I think there's a lot of people that are very high on him starting in that right guard spot.
Well, we'll see. We'll see, because I think Cam is pretty tough too. Cam got a lot of experience last summer when Jason Kelsey was out. So he got a lot of work there, and I think he could fit in very well at the right guard spot also. So that's to be determined. But that's not saying anything about Steen that's in the least bit negative. But I have to see it right now. It takes the two positions that I think you'll agree, Dan, that take the longest to develop are quarterback and offensive line. The defensive lineman can come in and you say, kill the quarterback and, go play aggressively. And they can do that. But offensive line with all the switches and stunts and everything else, it takes a lot. No matter how bright they are, it takes a lot of experience.
That's why you traditionally see guys later in their careers. I mean, what the Eagles had last year with Sue and with Linval Joseph, those two guys were really good run stopping. And by the way, they weren't asked to be pass rushers anymore. They were asked to be more one-dimensional. But when you see these O-linemen, the great O-linemen, look at Lane, look at anybody who's played the O-line, Trent Williams right now, most of these guys are in their mid to late 30s. And that's when you really see guys in their prime is in their 30s when you're a great offensive lineman. When you get a guy like Baselli or you get a guy like Anthony Munoz that is immediately great, those are just outliers. Most of the guys, I mean, like Jordan Mailata to me, I think he has the chance because of his size and he just has lack of experience and reps. The more he gets, I'm telling you, Merrill, that I would say this in 5 years, he's the dominant left tackle in the game.
Oh, I agree because aside from the attributes that you mentioned, he wants it so badly. He loves the game, and he has that offensive lineman's mentality. He wants to mow over who's ever in his path. He's very, very talented. They struck gold when they found him.
Last two questions for you. Who or what concerns you more going into camp in a few weeks? The linebacker position or the safety position?
Probably. It's tough to say. I think they'll be okay at the safety position. Don't forget they did pick up Terrell Edmonds, and the young player who stepped up, the undrafted free agent out of Middle Tennessee State.
And they got Sidney Brown back there.
What?
They got Sidney Brown back there now.
And they do. He's young and talented, so we have to see what he can do. It's of course the linebackers. You're going to see Nakobe Dean step up this year, and he's a big deal. And you're going to see Nolan Smith step up this year. So this is a wait and see. But let me put it this way: neither position concerns me to the point where I say, boy, that's going to be a real weakness. I think they have the people who can fill those needs.
You know what, too, Merrill? Ike Reese said this a couple months ago, and I had a conversation with Ike about this. You don't have to have those Buddy Ryan defenses anymore in today's NFL. You got to just have people that keep people off the scoreboard, get some turnovers, you're not going to really see a lot of guys any longer, or you're not going to see a Ravens or Bucks or a Gang Green. You're just not going to see those kind of units anymore in the NFL. Do you agree with what I never thought about it. He goes, you don't have to be overly exceptional. What you have to be is great at premium positions, corner, edge rusher, and you got to kind of stop the run. The rest of it is kind of fill in the blank.
Yeah, but if you don't fill in all the blanks, you can be picked apart. It's an 11-man defense. If you have a weak corner, for example, they'll find him and they'll work him to death. If you have a lack of talent in the inside of the secondary, they'll find it and beat you. You can't have an overt weakness. You still have to have strength. That doesn't mean you have to have 11 all-pros, but you have to have a couple of those difference makers, and everybody else has to be at least solid.
Final question for you. NFC, 49ers, Seahawks, or Cowboys? And before you answer, Dak is 8-3 versus the Eagles. And since 2000, Seahawks are 8-3 versus the Eagles. And the Eagles have to travel to Seattle, which is a very tough trip to get up there. It's always tough to play, even when it was in the Kingdome. As you know, Merrill, that's a tough-ass place to play. And that new place they play in is no walk in the park as well. And 49ers, obviously, they still are a headless horseman. We don't know what's going to go on with the quarterback position.
We don't.
What team still do you think will be giving the Eagles, and what team concerns you the most? Because I think it's going to be a four-headed race for home field advantage.
Well, I can only answer that if you can tell me who's going to be healthy for the Cowboys on December the 10th, and who's going to be healthy for the Eagles, or who's going to be healthy for Seattle on December the 17th, and who's going to be healthy for the Eagles on that day. That's why I always say, Dan, it's not who you're playing, it's when you play them. It's all about injuries in this game. But on paper, and maybe it's just history, the team that I worry about most, not only in the NFC, but in the NFC East, of course, is Dallas.
Okay, well then I'm gonna rub my genie bottle here. And Merrill answered it like he was running for political office and for mayor of Philly.
Nope, not me.
Who are you more worried about? Well, I'm not looking down. I'm not. What do you think? I'm a fortune teller. I'd be playing Powerball, Dan, if I could do that.
Right, but it's true, isn't it? Isn't it more important to play a team than who you play?
It is.
That
history
changes greatly.
Merrill, that history stuff is for the media. At the end of the day, what's your roster look like on December 14th? What's your roster look like on January 4th?
Dan, if somebody told you last June the 7th that Seattle was going to really rely on Geno Smith,
never.
What would you say?
I had them ranked as the worst team in the league last year because of that court, because of who he was. There's no doubt. I would say this to you, Merrill, that the Seattle Seahawks were the biggest surprise in the NFL last year. Because who would have said this? They're better off without Russell Wilson. Right? I mean, it's remarkable. And who would have thought that Detroit is better now than the Rams? I mean, because of Jared Goff.
Who would have thought that the 49ers were going to go through the stretch they went through with Brock Purdy?
Well, we'll wait and see about that guy. I call it, I think we need to have a promotion night at Lincoln Financial when the Niners come in. It's going to be broken chicken wing night with a little Hassan sauce. We put it out there. You know, he's got a little arm thing here.
I know. I know. But who's their starting quarterback this year?
Sam Darnold.
Is he?
Well, Trey Lance is just absolutely, whatting the bed. And Sam Darnold or Brock Purdy, I mean, for a team, here, Merrill, I said this to everyone. For a team, look at the Eagles have taken complete advantage of the fact that the NFC stinks right now. I even say this, it might be tougher to win the AFC than win the Super Bowl because there's so many great quarterbacks over there. But the Eagles are taking complete advantage of that. They're stockpiling a team. And yet the 49ers have a stockpiled team, but they can't figure out the quarterback position. And they haven't since Kaepernick. I mean, they just haven't. Kaepernick has been their best quarterback in the last 10 years.
Boy,
including Garoppolo.
Well, Garoppolo gave them some good.
He did.
He sure has. I mean, he's smart. I mean, he gave them everything he had. But again, the old durability problem came up with his ugly head, and that was a problem. But Garoppolo, I remember a couple of years ago they played the 49ers here, and Garoppolo picked them apart. He was very, very good.
He was. Hey, Merrill, I want to sneak one last question in on you. Do you think Wentz is here? You think he's repairable? And I give you two examples: Ryan Tannehill and Geno Smith. Those guys show you could come back if you're willing, I guess, to go through some of the bumps and bruises. Do you think Carson Wentz is fixable, or do you think this is kind of what it is?
I think the only person who can answer that is Carson Wentz. And I don't think it's about physical ability. If Carson Wentz comes in with the right mindset and just works on his fundamentals. See, if I think whoever hires or picks up Carson Wentz, if someone gives him an opportunity, they've got to give him an incentive-loaded contract. And they've got to start from square one and really work on the fundamentals. The biggest problem he has, and it's been, see, as a rookie and a second-year quarterback before those injuries, he was a gifted athlete who could take off and play. Now you see him, now you don't. He's not that quarterback. He's got to learn to get rid of the football quickly. He's bright. He's athletically talented. And if he wants it, and he's got to want it more than anything else in the world, and he starts from square one with those fundamentals and takes coaching well, he can be an outstanding quarterback. The talent is there.
Big endorsement. Thank you so much, Merrill. Hey, how's the golf game coming?
Good.
Yeah?
Not bad.
Do you shoot your age?
Do I shoot my age? You mean, do I break 100?
Do you shoot 62?
Every day.
Merrill, do you shoot 65?
do I shoot 65? Not usually, Dan, but I can shoot low 80s.
Hey, Merrill, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Always a lot of fun with you, my friend. Thank you again, man. I really have a great time with you all the time. Hit them long.
I don't hit them long. I hit them straight. The problem is I can hear them land.
So wait a minute. Driver off the tee? Driver off the tee or 3-wood off the tee?
No, driver off the tee and maybe 225.
I'll tell you what I do to keep it like in the lane, especially if they're tight, like Marion and places like that. I hit one of those 2-irons. No. I get that 2-iron down there with a nice little, like this, Merrill, with a nice little fade to the right. Open that foot up a little bit, play it off the back foot, hit that baby out there and let that thing fade right in there.
No, I've got to use my driver for maximum distance, but I am very consistent with it.
Fantastic. Well, you're always consistent in everything you say here. Thank you so much, Merrill. Catch up with you again, my friend.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You got it. Our friend Merrill Reese, the legendary voice of the Philadelphia Eagles. Always a treat to sit there and talk to. Please hit the like button. By the way, I saw Niner. He goes, Big Sills knows what a big stiff is. That's what the wife said, Jackson. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football